this computer. Cool. I'm going to change my view so it's just speaker. All right, cool. So everyone put your mics on, or put your mics on mute, and let's get this thing started. So our first reader tonight is Andrew Rahal. Andrew Rahal is the author of the chapbook No New Wilderness by Seven Kitchens Press, published in 2021. He holds a PhD from the Seamus Heaney Center at Queen's University Belfast. He has received grants and awards for his writing from the Center for the Book Arts in NYC, New York, Poetry Ireland in Dublin, the European Association of American Studies, and the Arts Council of Northern Ireland. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much. It's an absolute joy to be here. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm beaming in from Belfast. It's 2 a.m. local time, so it seemed appropriate to read a few night poems, and two of which are in this issue. So it's great. So the first poem's called Election Obid. All summer, the cherry droops in pits and the gall feathers stain and batter the car. Each morning, we scrape it off or let it bake. All night, the gibbous moon glare is treed in the branches. A clear and astral web thaws outside our bedroom window. Each morning, we meet and disappear into each other. We drink sunup in bed. We take a morning after pill, or take the chance we meet, we disappear. When my dog runs to the creek and barks off, the paddling of mallards in the hollow do not flit a wing. All the sweet forecast, the clouds over the Flores Street Greenway can't be bothered either, accumulating depth, soft light, and soak. All month, Mercury is in retrograde, his amphetamine face, gibbous, slivered, the rage scarlet and red brick blob in the dark is slowly withdrawing across the sky. The next poem is another night poem. It's in my chapbook, No New Wilderness, and it's called Sonora. The hours of radio static make a desert. My right to pull over for a red and blue light at a well-lit rest stop confirmed this. The farther I drive, the faster my rituals shed like skin. A desert makes each baptism easier, the solitude and the wanting out. I just follow a dotted line that grows longer. The smell of a town is town. The smell of gas keeps rising. It's shaped like a worm, like a baby clothed in the back seats asleep. In the snake of Texas interstate, my right to look abandoned is real, is disappearing into the amber trickle of towns on the horizon. They come in twos, Sonora and El Dorado, Maynard and Junction. Every football team needs a rival and their ghosts to tackle new students lingering in the halls. A long-haul truck rattles past me. Its metal frame and wide body unhinges on the air, courses through this vein like bad drugs. The diesel exhaust packs an explosion, a coil, and a release. Stop, rest, call it off like a dream. And just the last poem I'll read is also in Crab Creek. It's called A Lullaby for a Bad Ear. I woke up dreaming through my last wave. I took a punchy beach break all the way in until it was softening and the foam washed over sand and rocks, and I walked the empty beach back to the car, and I let Marlowe run around until he was puking up salt water and shitting out sand, and then we went home and packed for the hospital. I woke up a human out of water. I woke up lying on the couch, the glory days, alive in amnesia. I woke up to Marlowe sniffing the bloody jockstrap taped to my head, which covered my ears, and I winced, and he pulled his snout back slowly and slumped under the coffee table. I woke up the dry dock dad joke. I woke up obsessed with buying a van, and I searched every corner of the internet. I woke up to all the ear appointments looking like mini storage units still in my name. I woke up to the most important step, healing. I sprayed the inner ear canal of my drilled out left ear as the doctor prescribed to slow the inflammation and to reduce the swelling. But all I wanted to know was the actual risk posed by water. I woke up to quantities of risk in density, grams, and minutes. What's the difference between 2 minutes and 10 minutes of exposure to a wound, salt water and bath water? I woke up in salt water, groundswell, pulsing over a reef. I woke up and the small bones in my ear were humming like a dental drill for the next 6 months. I woke up to the bad bones growing back, beating faster. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Andrew. That was fantastic. Our next reader today is, or I guess tonight, is Grace Gilbert. Grace is a poet, lyric essayist based in Pittsburgh. They have 2 chapbooks coming out in 2022, Notifications in the Dark, coming out from Montana Books, and The Closeted Diaries from Pork Belly Press. They are the recipient of the 2022 Under 27 Writer in Residence Fellowship at Mass MoCA and have received funding from the City of Asylum and Breadloaf Rona Jaffe. Check out their work in the Indiana Review, Ninth Letter, Anomaly, Adroit Journal, The Offing, and more. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you so much, Julia. Yeah, hi everyone. It's so good to be here. I am not in Europe, but I am broadcasting from my childhood bedroom at my mom's house. So that's why it's so pink in the background. It's really not my fave color. But anyway, I'm going to start by reading 2 poems that Crab Creek is graciously publishing in this issue, and then I will see what happens from there. Okay. This first one is called Joints of Meaning. Joints of Meaning. Performing. Oral sex to the new Lana. Album, the candle clapping against itself, excited or afraid. I said I want you to exert yourself, imagining our future in the sheets we're not even on. Then out the storefront, this morning it was birds. Again in hi-fi, the baby under the ceiling pendant kept naming it a moon. Then in the grave, yard smoking with K, the headstone read apt, and I was like, yeah, I mean, it's a disservice to always describe these things. You know, the peach-colored sound. This is a short poem without a title that I just included. Soil is gentrified dirt. Ecologically speaking, I mean, even with rights, we will die. And which of those will they use? This is another poem from Crab Creek called Trash Dock. Trash dock is what the autocorrect does to my conscious thoughts I've peddled out and sold my soul for. Is this what poetry can be? I've never had a good relationship and good dick, so there must be something symbolic to say about trash here. I mean, walking to the dumpster at work is the only time I felt what's real all day. When a customer says, "Have a good one," I say, "Thanks, at least you've got a son." Hope. I guess it holds me down like a monkey wrench. The names I've discovered in tools have queered me silly. It is sad, again, to fit a standard type of person, but alas, I am here and would suck trash dick for cash tips or rattan. At my apartment, the realtor says, "This looks like Urban Outfitters," and I was like, "Gee, thanks. I am a free thinker, poet, dreamer, and artist." Sometimes I get my way even when I'm stealing it. Sometimes the passion is not of the Christ, it's of phantom excess. I mean, don't you fucking count your pennies for it. Okay, so I'm gonna like tone it down for a sec. These are some poems that I've had in my notes app that are not really done, but I think it's better that way. Okay, this is called Johnstown, after Johnstown, New York. Johnstown. Googling, I am depressed and CA Conrad. I want to know everything about everyone except for myself. Where's Instagram when you need it? Where's every single hair follicle on the head of a boy in sweatpants so zoomed in against the teeth you used to kiss in high school? Like any foregone palimpsest, I keep making things. With my hands, I keep my hair short. Nothing will fall in the dough except my own will and fingernails. Nothing will make me happy unless I misremember you under that overpass. When the cars went on, and I would have switched my body for yours. When you threw rocks at the iced over runoff God gave us for a stream. Johnstown, looking like the kind of place you mistook for another. The same gas station priests, carbon copy pizzeria, the gray matter and sickly underbaked love you could throw rocks at. Look at the glass way and call a river. Okay, I'm gonna read one more. Yikes. Okay, this is another from my notes app called Pigmentation for some reason. Okay, Pigmentation. Maybe I need to go to Wisconsin, where skin clears, where pockets of trash fumes don't pockmark this anemic city, all these grates. Or maybe I should move back upstate, pressed in your hearse green car, more Rochester than Rochester, when you kept our amnesty in the form of dead flowers on the dash, our dissonance making a zebra pattern, our jackhammer split sun arguments, losing rhythm. And what was it all for in the car with those flowers? You'd hold them for years until they gave no life. Some winter storm came and I walked 3 miles for coffee. You stayed quiet in the car. What were you thinking all alone like that? Nothing left but the noise of space. Okay, that'll be it for now. Thank you so everyone for coming.
Oof. Thank you so much, Grace, for joining. This is fantastic. Awesome. Our next reader tonight is John Sibley Williams. John is the author of 7 poetry collections, including Scale Model of a Country at Dawn from Cider Press Review Poetry Award, The Drowning House, Elixir Press Poetry Award, As One Fire Consumes Another, Orison Poetry Prize, Skin Memory, Backwater Prize, University of Nebraska Press, and Summon from Juxtaprose Chapbook Prize. A 26-time Pushcart nominee, John is the winner of numerous awards, including the Wabash Prize for Poetry, the Philip Booth Award, Phyllis Smart Young Prize, and Locke's Millar Prize. He serves as the editor of the Inflectionist Review and is the founder of Caesura Poetry Workshop Series. Previous publishing credits include Best American Poetry, Yale Review, Verse Daily, North American Review, Prairie Schooner, and Tri-Quarterly. Welcome, John.
Oh, thank you. I don't like bios. I'm gonna just make stuff up next time. He loves horses. Thank you so much, Julia. This is wonderful, and see so many people too. You know, I think some people are really tired of Zoom readings after almost 2 years, and to see so many people really excited about this journal is fantastic. So thank you so much for including a few of my poems. I'm deeply honored. So I'm going to read. I'm going to read two of the poems that will be in the issue. This first one is called "Because Everything Here is a Brightness." In this version, the sky smuggles stars over a horizon's barbed border without a single shot fired. And someone is always emptying our cages of their children. Another folds into pollen, into comb, into a sweetness that carries no sting. And because we were given so much at first, it's okay when a little is taken back. When running half naked in the backyard, My daughters, don't ask why the world will soon shield its eyes from their bodies, or stare longingly, or touch, or worse. The country their great-grandparents fled, and the country that interned them. And today, the way our neighbors spit their venom cannot, in this lullabied version, take root under our skin. Swell, redden. No, this vibrant sidewalk chalk doesn't mean someone's fallen. Yes, our fields will forever refuse to age into cemeteries. I promise these doors we're drawing on your bedroom wall will swing and stay open. Widely, wildly. And my hesitant, half-broken hands will always ache toward light. Because of your light, because this sky, because everything here is a brightness, and the stars singeing your palms, I pray will never heal. The one other that was included in this lovely issue is called Last Summer I Dug Two Graves I Hope to Never Fill. And for those of us who maybe were on the West Coast in particular last year, this was written during the fires that we had. And it was true. I remember going outside with my two 5-year-olds, my little girls, and there were actually just dead birds littered all over our front yard. They were just dead animals. They were just from the smoke. It was that bad. So that's where this comes from. Forgive me. I say to the halos, together we crayon around the heads of each dying bird, dropped by distant wildfires onto the lawn, and our ungentle sweeping away of the tainted honeycombs the bees know never to return to. Smoke as a metaphor for what's been irrevocably taken from us has its limits. Someone is always cocking their finger up at undocumented clouds cutting across the sky, as if everything is a border, as if this entire house and everything in it is ours. I hold her hand, holding a fresh bottle of whiteout, as it vanishes the pronoun the world has shouldered her with. Even through our masks, the looks our neighbors fire back, as we all choke together on the air, which tastes like gunpowder and rust. And knowing forgiveness is a dull blade, I refuse to ask them about the unburnt acreage between us, or if the pie they left on our stoop 8 years ago was really a parting gift, a symbol, a prayer. How holy it seems now, the way dead stars reach across heaven after heaven to find us here, as a phosphorescence, as proof, in unwritten history. Tonight I promise her the world and everything in it. We'll never love her more than these chipped crayons dragging halos through dust and soil and ash. How together, I swear, we can learn to breathe it. Now one's dedicated to one of my daughters who's one of my twin 5-year-olds is transgender, so she shows up in a lot of my poems. One of our old school neighbors doesn't quite understand what's going on, shall we say. So that issue, if you want to call it that, showed up in that poem there. And so I guess I'm going to read, if I may, one more poem just from that book you just mentioned, The Drowning House. I actually just showed up on my doorstep a couple days ago. It's not out for a few months, but I just got my first box of them. Yay! So so this poem is called "The Dead Just Need to Be Seen, Not Forgiven." And this poem actually is the first poem I've ever had in the Best American Poetry Anthology that comes out every year. I've read it every year for like 20 years, and it's the first time I've ever gotten in there. So thank you for everyone for that. So the dead just need to be seen, not forgiven. That old man in the photo, our family never talks about. Known best for tracking runaway slaves. Tonight, we drag him from the basement, up these loose wood stairs, and set out a plate of salted cabbage and rabbit. So long since I've asked why the empty chair at our table. With all the warmth the body has to give, we give up on measuring the darkness between men. Dust and dusk enter and are wiped from the room. The names we call each other linger, luminous and savage. Still, that tree I used to hang tires from holds tight its dead centuries. The light swinging from its branches we call rope-like, which implies there's no longer rope. Tonight, we'll wash the burnt out stars from his hair, all the crumbs from his beard. The misfired bullet of his voice we let burn as it must. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. That was it's so good. It's so one of my favorite parts about these readings is the opportunity to hear everyone read their poems out loud because we become really familiar with it on the page, right? So getting to see actually how, the words are intoned and how the line breaks work. It's a pleasure. And it's one of my favorite parts. Great. All right. And so we have one last reader before the break, Karah Kemmerly. And so I am just going to pull up the bio. All right. Karah is a queer writer who grew up in Northern California and completed her MFA at Oregon State University. You can find her poems in Dear, Redivider, The Journal, Had, and Ethel. She lives in Portland, Oregon, where she makes zines with Conjunction Press and teaches writing at the community college. Thank you, Karah.
Hey, everybody. I've been doing a lot of teacher Zoom today, so this is a nice break. I am going to read for you a couple poems that are all from a similar, I think it's going to be a chapbook project earlier this year, so a lot of reflecting on the fires and just this past kind of nightmare pandemic experience, but also a lot of me watching movies and thinking about that and my sexuality, and it kind of is a weird soup. But yeah, the first one here came to be because I spent last December watching every movie Robert Pattinson had acted in. So this is, what came out of that. It's just called Pattinson. In December, I watch all 30-something of his films in 2 weeks, ranking them by quality, then haircut. Mullet to moppy bangs to tousled center part. I'm looking for through lines that don't exist. Some essential Robertism. Paranoid eyes, his shirkback lurch. He puts sunglasses on in a limo he owns, and still he's totally unsettled. My God, to be so overt with your anxiety? He's gonna hurt somebody, I think, and eventually he does. He dresses his dead friends carefully and drops them into space, sings Pretty Girl Rock in the passenger seat, clutching a handgun. Of course it goes off later. Next to a chain link fence, inside the fun house, at the kitchen table when he's ankle deep in flood. I should care more about the harm, but watching him, I crave waiting instead. A slow pony wander across Wyoming, an angry seagull that sits and stares. The moment you recognize disaster before it happens, and part of you welcomes it. At the ocean, I knew I was smitten and should have run, but didn't. When you spend so much time with someone, it's impossible not to fall for them a little, to make them a mirror, I mean. Robbie appears, a spectral warning, plays dead from his boarding school window, bites hard into his girlfriend's wrist, and reluctantly loves the taste. I've been emailing this guy recently who's absolutely terrified of me, he tells a GQ reporter. He says he's got a lousy sense of time, that he doesn't realize how little of it has passed between messages, but I'm skeptical. Not saying he's a liar, but he clearly knows how to act. And if he is lying, I forgive him. Sometimes I know a thing is wrong, and so I try it. Sometimes I pretend I'm not afraid of what comes next. All right, so this next one, I'm sticking very loosely with a space theme here for tonight's poems. This next one is, warning, a little bit of a downer. So I'll pick you back up some, but we're sinking a little. This is called Self-Portrait as a Solar Eclipse. Each new day feels like a slow motion ending. Sometimes I catch myself mid-gasp, open and shut the dark circle of my mouth over no particular wrong. For an apocalypse, I stay awful quiet. Watch the grass beneath me fade to gray and startle only at the sudden cold. The news right now is mostly bad. Whenever anyone calls, I hesitate before picking up the phone, split the world into before and now. It's unclear what makes me more anxious, my body or its gradual absence. Hannah says I look thinner and means it as an accusation. I've been rationalizing harm the same old way. What recognizable distinction is there between obscured and obscuring if I play both celestial roles? Transformation not as disappearance, but as spectacle, a never before seen event. But there's nothing really spectacular about whittling myself to crescent. A boy who shared his poems with me in high school is gone. Once he used his lungs to scream emo songs to a crowd. Once I ate 2 meals a day and slept through the night. It weighs so much now just to survive. Something comes after totality, but I can't see past the moon. Yeah, so the downer of the year. Yeah, so this next one is the poem that Crab Creek is going to publish in the fall, and I'm stoked to have it out in the world. It's called My Season as a Comet. As a collector, I'm relentless. I pull up handfuls of Queen Anne's lace and pocket enough tiny agates to fill a vial to the brim. By color, I layer them, green on gray on amber, and with a leather cord, bind them to me. I keep a box full of treasures, stones and shells from every place that made my ribs hum. It's a little magpie, sure, and sometimes heavy. A blue sunrise haloed above me, dusk settling violet into a coma around my feet. But isn't fear the only rational reaction to beauty? In September, I watched my childhood burn and fell through a strange orange sky. Not everything lasts like I want, I mean. I promised myself I could never forget, but then orbit, wild and eccentric. Nothing is ever the same when I return. Yeah, and then I have one more for you. This is a poem also sort of sticking with the space theme. In addition to all of the movies that I've been watching a lot of TV. And this is my X-Files poem, which is also definitely about grief, but everything kind of is now. Dark again, sorry. I want to believe that I am more Mulder than Scully. In the field, I look up, waiting for visitors. Walk out into the dark and whisper my heart into a flashlight. I'm here, I say to no one. You can trust me. I want them to be anything but gone. When the full moon rises, I fill the tub with lavender. Build yet another altar out of sacred objects. Pomegranate seeds and selenite, fire and jasper, feather and bone. I read spellbook after spellbook. Plant burdock and calendula, scroll through occult forums and rewatch The Craft. Ghost hunters come to Denver, so I sign up to tour the theater with them. My winter breath cascades against a tape recorder. What's the last thing you remember? I want someone to tell me what the end will feel like. Being swallowed by a wave, a swarm of fireflies. We huddle in a closet with our EVPs, and one woman swears she feels a tap on her shoulder. I'm sorry, I say that might have been me. No specter meets me on the mezzanine. No voice sneaks its way onto my playback. The truth is, I have no sixth sense. I spread the cards out in front of me and calmly answer my own questions. Faced with a body, I'd reach for a scalpel. Investigate the most likely cause. Thanks, everyone. I love hearing your stuff.
Thank you. We love hearing your stuff. Karah is also one, her poem will be published in Crab Creek Review as one of our finalist poems selected by Camille T. Dungy. And along with the poem, when Camille sent her selections, he sent little blurbs for the finalist poems and the winning poem. And about my season as a comet, Camille Dungy said, "I love the way the title gives this poem a wild, wonderful new life." So it's great to hear it out loud too. Thanks so much, Karah. I am very pleased to welcome Justin Hunt to the proverbial stage. Justin Hunt grew up in rural Kansas and lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. His work has won several awards and appears or is forthcoming in a wide range of literary journals and anthologies in the US, Ireland, and the UK. He's currently working on a debut poetry collection. And yeah, welcome, Justin.
Well, thank you very much, Julia. Thank you and David and your entire team for all that you do and for this reading. Also to the other poets, big thank you. I look forward to reading your work in this upcoming issue. I think I can speak for all of us who write, especially as poets, in saying that we don't take the work you do at Crab Creek for granted. It's a lot of hours. We know behind the scenes there's a tremendous effort that goes into it. So my thanks to you for all of that. I'm going to read 3 poems tonight. The first 2 will appear in this upcoming issue of Crab Creek. Thanks for that again. And then a 3rd poem. This first poem, as you'll see when you read it in the next issue, makes attribution to the Greek writer Nikos Kazantzakis. I riff on the final page of his famous novel, Zorba the Greek, and that's why the attribution is made. Otherwise, I think it's self-explanatory, and I'll just read it. Slags of cloud, a cold wind. Slags of cloud, a cold wind clawing leafless trees as I walk toward home, my head full of Bix Beiderbecke. Those clear cornet notes, easy and bright and sweet, like a girl saying yes, someone once said. And you'd think by now I would have learned it's pointless to ask more of life than life can spare. And I ought to make my peace, though Bix didn't. And damn, if this wanting won't stop, this daggering, these February nights, my father's last breath 31 years ago, that evening still fresh as the snow that palled our Kansas yard and the elms he'd planted, the house he'd built, which at last was empty of him, though not, never entirely, just as the not, the oh please never of my son's death hunkers yet in the gut of wanting. If only I could live like Zorba, shed of the past, of regret. I'd guzzle my wants, wake up my last day and step to a window, run my eyes to distant hills and sun, my nose to a lavender breeze. I'd hear Bix and neigh like a Mustang. Oh, how I'd neigh. This next poem was spawned by the pandemic, and I'm sure many of you can identify with that eerie Twilight Zone, uncanny feeling of the early days of the lockdown. And this poem just came to me during those weeks. Night after night, the flicker of TVs from neighbors' windows. And yet, below this house, in the unseen creek, a gurgle of protest. In the flower bed, an ambush of iris, a memory. My mother and I, in our yard in Conway Springs, next to a limestone wall and shocks of springtime bloom, a stampede of color racing over her pink pleated skirt, the wine of her cheeks, the sapphire sky. And when I speak in gusts of gold, palominos of wind that gallop out of me as from a dark cave, that place I've waited so long. You may have picked up in the first poem that I lost my son several years ago. And this poem surfaced 10 years after that. It's about my wife and me. And it was published last year in the New Ohio Review. It's called Knife and Salt. Knife and salt. At sundown, we sit at our garden's edge, speak of thinkers and their theories. What's real? If something follows this life, the ways of knowing the little we know. An owl swoops the creek below, swift as death. I shift in my lawn chair, pick at my knee, an old wound I won't let heal. Do you wonder, I ask, if Descartes ever said, I feel pain, therefore I am? You sigh, run your eyes to a remnant of light in the oak above, as if in your drift you could re-enter the time of our sun, inhale his dusky scent. I honor your silence, but what I feel, what I know, what I want to say is, we have no choice but to watch September settle on our garden. And look, all these tomatoes that cling to withered vines, blushes of green and carmine, waxen wines and yellows, the swollen heirlooms. When the next one falls, my love, I'll pick it up, fetch us a knife and salt. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. That was fantastic. You can also find, again, Justin's poem, Slags of Cloud, A Cold Wind, in Crab Creek Review. It was another one of our finalist poems. And about the poem, Camille said, this poem pulled me immediately into its often surprising observations, situating a deeply emotional response to the world within what feels like necessary awareness of desires, dangers, and glories. Thank you so much, Justin, for sharing that, and all the other poems as well. It's quite fantastic. I am excited to introduce our next reader, Melissa McKinstry. Melissa lives in San Diego, where she mothers her disabled adult son, curates a neighborhood poetry tree, and assists with the translation of Yiddish literature. She's earning her MFA at Pacific University. Her work has appeared in Rattle and is forthcoming in Alaska Quarterly Review, December, and the Comstock Review. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much. Thanks to Julia and David and the Crab Creek Review for hosting this. What a great way to head into Thanksgiving with all this poetry ringing in our ears. I've just finished compiling my thesis for my MFA low-res program at Pacific University, and it's just so great to hear all these other voices and all the ways that we bring our experiences to each other into the shared space of poetry. My first poem is the poem that will be appearing in this edition of Crab Creek Review, and it's called Wolf Moon. Wolf Moon. Thorn held, the wolf moon struggles in the bramble, bleeds gold over the dark bed. Small birds feel this flare as dawn and begin to wrestle despite the beast. A man I once loved is disappearing, cancer swelling his tongue and throat. His cheeks collapse, his shoulders slip out of his shirt, slender as a boy's. Each day, a mask nets his head as though he were a rare and fragile hair. Within the dimness, the focused beam burns. When the wolf moon howls, fangs bared, there is no hiding. His bones stack and click. He glows. And this poem is a poem about caregiving for my son and all the strange and wonderful encounters that entails. And so one of the places that we often visit is a local medical supply pharmacy that's quite wonderful, actually, as odd as that sounds. So this is at the medical supply pharmacy and life before. You don't need a sterile kit if you know what you're doing, shrugs Tatiana, the pharmacist from the cedar forests of Siberia, describing the use of a catheter. Her eyes, expertly made up in brown pencil and blue shadow, like the wife of an evangelical preacher on TV, turned to mine. Her brows arch. Your son's birth date is the same as my son's. I imagine her son, blonde and strong, like the angular figure of a young man on a Russian propaganda poster. I don't know what she's left behind that trails her in Cyrillic flourishes here to the pharmacy window. But holding this catheter and sterile kit means another new transgression for my blonde and fragile boy. And suddenly I feel like the wife of Lot in that poem by Akhmatova, a wild grief in my bosom, looking back to song and garden from my pillar of salt. And the last poem I'll read this evening is called Creedence Clearwater Revival. It's a sort of homage to my father and his love of music, which he passed on to the rest of us. Creedence Clearwater Revival. Then late afternoon again, heat saturates the dock like a Rothko, orange and red. A gin and tonic melts ice in each glass. We're sweating in the Idaho panhandle, strung out on deck chairs, waiting for the offshore breeze. Shade of tamarack and cedar is deep blue and heavy. Even watching the lake from the porch is a kind of suffocation. A brassy glare off the water shines on the Hobie's old mast, lines still. Only the zither of crickets now. We're in the forge with Hephaestus, molten, ready to be shaped. And then the fuzz of the needle finding the groove. Creedence Clearwater lights up Green River at medium blare. Trademark riff, Fogarty drawl. Dad appears from the dim cabin, screen door slapping behind him, grins, and starts a little shuffle in his mocks. And we're all up now, toasting his 80th. Yes, the world is smoldering, but the wind finally exhales down the mountain and the orange begins to blue. If there's a world after this one, I hope I'm a backup singer for the band, tambourine and harmony, a few moves. I hope I'm a 70s DJ on FM. I hope I'm cool as the sky fades to violet, Venus rising, a frisson of change like that needle touching the vinyl. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. That was absolutely wonderful. Melissa's poem, Wolf Moon, was also a finalist for the Crab Creek Review Poetry Prize. About the poem, Camille says, "This poem's surprising turn hit me in the gut, but the taut lines and bright details held me like the kind of hug you give someone whose pain you know and you know you can't abate." Thank you, Melissa. Our next and final reader of the night is Lois Rosen. Lois Rosen leads the Salem, Oregon's Trillium Writers, the ICL writing group at Willamette University, and co-founded the Peregrine Poets. She's published Pigeons, Trap Rock Books from 2004, Nice and Loud by T-Bach Bach in 2015, and Diving and Rising by Finishing Line Press, which is coming out in 2021, or has come out. She won first prize in the Crab Creek Review's 2021 poetry contest. Welcome, Lois.
Thank you. That was really exciting. It's still exciting. I wanted to thank you, especially Julia, because you've been so helpful and supportive and skilled. It's been great. I have 3 poems that are all from Crab Creek Review. 2 of them are from this issue, and 1 of them is from 2013. So it's reincarnating. And the first poem takes place in Oregon, around in my garden, and around the time when we had the freeze. October, alas. Dahlias, the statuesque attention grabbers, kissable pinks, proud purple dazzlers, opulent ooh la la orange varieties, firebrands all, dollop and dazzle from May to October. Then bam, the freeze. The demon destroyer sneers. So long, snazziness. The curls of petals loosen. Blooms droop, then drop. Leaves that glowed morph into mildewed mush. Rushing outdoors, I rescue the survivors to make bouquets before they brown. Every year it comes too early, killing frost, the cold's appetite. Buried in darkness, will tubers survive? Crush the lower stems, a gardener suggests. Cover the plot with compost. In mild winters, it's enough. Other years, not. And this is the 2013 one. And it was written at Poets on the Coast, which was led by Kelly Russell Agaddon and Susan Rich. And I wrote the poem using a heart-shaped rock as the prompt. Actually, I think it was Kelly's rock, but I got to keep it. And I learned the meaning of chordate, which is heart-shaped, from the poet Eleanor Berry. And she's here somewhere in this audience. I saw her name. So, chordate shape. The stone resembles a valentine, but smooth, calcified, and white. It will never become a human heart, require surgery, digitalis, or aspirin, emergency resuscitation. It may consider life lucky, no matter how much oceans and rivers batter and bash. It will not await biopsy reports, scans, blood test results by telephone or mail. Won't be shown color photos, be told or left to deduce that suspicious lines may disappear, be nothing, prove fatal. No bucket list wish to grant returns a stone to shore. It will not moan or sob or gasp or hack or shriek. A hand pockets it to take home as a cheerful souvenir. One splash of incoming tide, and that's that. Its indentation disappears from sand. And this is my favorite one. This is a poem in praise of my friend Elsa, who's in her 90s. We taught together in the South Bronx many years ago. I really want to thank Camille Dungy for her heartwarming description of the poem. I feel so honored and lucky. This poem takes place on the 14th floor of my friend's apartment in the Bronx. And there's a balcony that faces New Jersey. And there's the Palisades that are sheer cliff on the other side of the river. And it's the Hudson River. So, late afternoon. Who dares consider the Bronx a less respectable borough, the poor relative of glitzy Manhattan, when Elsa reigns in large sunglasses, high cheekbones, skin smoothed nightly by Nivea. She's sitting out on her balcony, a sweep of yellow petunias reaching toward her, pearly everlasting, deep blue campanula, reblooming year after year, bumblebees and sparrows returning. Silver blonde hair in a bun, loose strands blowing in the breeze. Why should she mind when she's the monarch at 90? New York Times already read, Sunday's crossword puzzle completed. New Jersey's Palisades glow green across the river. She continues sipping her Cabernet Sauvignon, and toasting, tangerine sunsets. The rose wool shawl she knitted wrapped snugly around her. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lois. That was fantastic. And late afternoon was and Lois were the recipient of the Cow Creek Review Poetry Prize. About the poem, Camille Dungy said, "The rhythms and pacing in this praise poem are intoxicating. All those internal rhymes seeming to prove that this is the only possible center of beauty. The clean tercets overflowing like small patio apartments that can hardly contain all the glory they hold. The craftsmanship in this poem is as delightful to behold as the subject. Late afternoon was fun to read, but also deeply serious. I was happy to read it and return to it again and again." Thank you, Lois. And thank you. And thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording.